And in five, four, three, two, one, we should be live on the stream. Hello, YouTube. Welcome to this live stream. If you are tuning in now, I am about to basically talk to you guys about what you need to know, what you need to ask yourself before buying your very first electric skateboard. You guys have no idea how many times, how many emails I get every single day asking, hey Ronnie, I'm ready to buy my first board. I don't know what board to buy. Should I get this? Should I get that? I get those types of emails, those types of comments, those types of questions pretty much every single day. So today I'm going to try and provide the questions that you need to ask yourself for you to make that choice, because at the end of the day, you know what you like, you know your personal preferences, and you're going to be making the choice. Not me, not someone else. It's your choice to make. And today I am joined by a co-host. We have a fellow YouTube content creator who does a lot of electric skateboard videos, from rides, reviews, all types of content. We have Mr. Brandon Yu. Hello, welcome to the stream, Brandon. How are you doing today?
How's it going, Ronnie? It's good to be here. Thanks for inviting me to the stream.
Of course. How was your day today, Brandon?
Pretty good. You know, just working from home, unfortunately, with this climate.
Yeah, same. That's sort of the bad thing about the times like this.
Yeah.
Can't really leave.
But you know, with this type of video, it'd be good so people can figure out what kind of boards to buy after this is all over.
Exactly. So, once this is all over, they're gonna get a board. They're gonna go on their rides, and they're gonna stay healthy.
Yeah. For sure.
Speaking of getting a first board, what was your first board?
My first board was a boosted V2. Man, I bought that board I think in 2016, and back in the day there were not a lot of good options. Like all the budget boards were either they would break in a few months or something, or it was basically between Evolve or Boosted. So, and I wanted a board that'll just get me to class much faster. At the time I was in college, so Boosted V2 was the way to go at the time.
And how long ago was this?
Oh, I think I ordered it 2016, I believe, summer 2016, and then there was the delay, and I finally got it March 2017. So, wow, it's 3 years now. Yeah. How
did you come up with the decision to buy the Boosted V2?
Let's see. I want to say, so I think Casey Neistat was a really big influence in just having the idea of electric skateboard. So I started watching him for a bit. And I don't want to attribute my decision to buy an electric skateboard because of him, but in a way, I knew about electric skateboards from him, and I was longboarding to class before that. So, I was somebody that wanted to get to class much faster, and I just kept Googling and researching longboarding and electric skateboarding, and eventually I'm okay, this is something I really want. And then I had a summer job that year, and then I made enough money to buy my own board.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were, I guess, heavily influenced by Casey Neistat's videos and him riding around New York City. I mean, you're in that area too, so.
In a way, yeah. It wasn't ultimately oh, I'm buying it because of Casey. I knew about electric skateboards because of Casey, and then I went to further do so much research. Went on all the electric skateboard subreddits, did a lot of googling around, seeing what kind of good boards were out there. And then ultimately I made the decision to go for the higher end model, so it would last me much longer. And it was a great decision because my boosted board 3 years later is still running perfectly fine.
Nice.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's still running now, did you ever have to send it in to get it repaired or anything like that?
Yeah, I didn't have to send it in, but I think the first time something happened, I think I dropped my remote, and then something inside came loose. They sent me a free remote back, and then I've replaced 2 motors, I think, and that's it. Other than
okay,
kind of a given for belt-driven boards.
All right, that's what's up. We're gonna get into sort of repair and customer service in just a second. I just want to say what's up to the people in chat right now. For some reason, it's not popping up on my screen, but I have it pulled up on my phone. So
gotcha.
Let's go ahead and just say what's up to everyone here. Let's say what's up, Bean Boy, Martin, August. We got Garouche, Kevin, welcome. We got Darius, Lil Joker, Kyle Harvey over here, Sebastian, David. You guys, thank you so much for tuning into this. Oscar, Alex, Mr. Reddington. Everyone's in here. We got Nick. Hi, hello, and welcome. Welcome to the stream.
A lot of people.
Got several people here. So now that we have our audience, let's go ahead and touch on the first thing that you sort of have to ask yourself when picking your first electric skateboard, and that's why you even want one. Your answer was that you wanted a quick way to commute around campus.
Yeah.
That was basically your reasoning for getting one, right?
Yeah, and like I think when I longboard, I like going fast. So like, and I just like getting in class. So the whole idea why I started like skateboarding actually, like it wasn't because of like tricks or anything. When I was on campus, like I was like freshman year of college, I saw like people on like their penny boards, whatever longboards, like pushing the class so much faster.
Mhm.
Like, and I'm just like walking into class. I'm like, wow, I need to get my something that gets me to class much faster. So that was the whole idea of like why I started skating. And I think after a year of that was when, and then I like learned about electric skateboards, and that's kind of like the next level of progression. Like okay, I can go even faster if I can go like 22 miles per hour on an electric skateboard compared to just pushing around. So
Okay, I think my reasoning is a little different. Straight up, I just saw them on YouTube and I thought they were cool.
yeah,
And I was like, I want to have one. I was skateboarding, longboarding for a long time, and throwing a motor into it just seemed like an even more fun idea. And I just had to have one. And to be honest, the answer to this question, why are you getting one? There's no wrong answer. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just something you got to ask yourself. Because some people are picking one up for fun, like us. Some people are picking it up for more practical reasons, like going to class, going to work. Some people are using it as their last mile vehicle instead of driving a couple blocks or a couple miles to a train station or something like that, or to work. They will ride their board instead.
yeah, exactly. And then even if like say I got it initially for like commuting purposes, right? It ended up becoming like much more than that. Like I just ride for fun. Like it goes from a work thing, like commuting thing, to like just riding for fun, because like that
You're just using like any excuse to ride the
exactly.
board. Like
Yeah, I used to ride like so much.
you got bit by the bug.
Exactly.
But I would say that since you said that you grew up skating, one thing you should consider before picking up a board is your ability on a skateboard. If you've never skateboarded before, riding one with a motor might not be the best idea.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if you're considering getting an electric skateboard, you should consider your abilities on a regular skateboard first. Do you even know how to ride one? Can you push a skateboard? Can you push a longboard? Because adding a 25 mile per hour motor underneath that is not going to make it any easier. I'm not saying you can't learn how to ride an electric skateboard as your first board, but it's something you should consider. I think that what you should do is, if you don't have access to any type of board, maybe borrow one from someone, borrow an electric skateboard to see how it feels to ride, to see if it's even for you. Because these things aren't cheap. They're at minimum hundreds of dollars that you would need to spend before like getting a decent one. Upwards up to over $1,000, some are $2,000, and that's kind of a commitment. So if you can try before you buy, that's a big tip right there to see if you like it. And I think
yeah, like I would say like whenever someone asks me like, should I buy an electric skateboard, and I know they've never skated before, like that's like one of the first warnings I give them, because it's like I had like at least a year of longboarding experience before like riding electric skateboards, right? So in that year you really like get to learn how to fall correctly, how to push, how to stop correctly. But whereas if you're not a skater and then you decide to pick up electric skateboarding, what happens like when something goes wrong? Because at the end of the day, you're trusting like software, you're on a wooden board on your feet. So if something
right, you have to know how to stop that board.
Yeah.
And with no prior skate experience,
Exactly. If you don't know
you're
how to
going to rely
brake,
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the first
and
things
you're just
I
going
think
down a
you should
hill,
do. Oh yeah, definitely.
The other thing, like if you can't stop, and then like if you have to bail at some point, everybody like bails. Like it's not a thing about like if you fall, it's a matter of when you fall, right? And
Right,
like
right. It's gonna happen.
yeah. So when you learn to skate like without electric skate, like just normal skating, you learn how to like roll out of your falls, or you know you learn how to fall properly. You don't want to
You
learn
build
how
up
to.
like a way to take the hits,
Yeah, exactly.
not so like you don't take the hit so hard because you, yeah, like you
At a
said, you
slower
roll it
speed,
out.
yeah.
Yeah,
You do not want to learn how to fall going 22 miles per hour.
yeah. Definitely
That's
learn
yeah,
how to fall going a bit slower than that.
exactly. So even if you do, I know a lot of people who like got electric skateboards, even though they didn't know how to skate, right? So I would
Hmm.
suggest like just taking it slow in the beginning for sure, like just like because you're gonna fall eventually. If you fall at the lower speeds, it's much more manageable than, and like you get to learn how to fall at the lower speeds. It's much more manageable when you eventually fall like the higher speeds. Like I fall on at like 25 miles per hour, and but since I know how to fall, like I come out of those kind of like not as injured. But also I wear like a ton of protective gear when I ride.
That's what I was gonna
Yeah,
say. Like, I'm pretty sure that those of you watching wearing protective gear, at least a helmet is
yeah.
is a given because when you're riding at these speeds, these are not speeds you're probably used to standing on a piece of wood, and something could, would, will go wrong, and you want to make sure that you're protecting your big, beautiful brain.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like I will always wear a helmet whenever I leave, and then like I also wear like protective gloves because I use my like precious hands. Like I'm a programmer, so I have to type as everybody has to type. So you don't want to screw up your hands. So I will always wear protective like gloves.
Programmer in the big city, huh? Big city, New Jersey, New York.
Yeah,
Speaking of the big city, that brings us to our next point. What a beautiful segue, am I right?
yeah, it's pretty good.
Where are you going to be riding your first electric skateboard? Something you got to consider first off is it legal in your city, in your state, in your country? Some places they're completely outlawed. Some people are still doing it. I'm not saying I'm not saying break the law if it's illegal, but I'm just saying you should brush up on the electric skateboard laws in your area or wherever you're planning to ride before you even buy one. Because if you find out that you're not even allowed to do it there, it might be a big waste of money.
Hmm.
And then secondly, if you're in a city, if you're in the suburbs, if you want to ride this on trails, depending on where you want to ride your board will sort of alter the options that you have, because in a city there's certain types of boards that would perform a bit better for in that type of environment, and we'll go into those different things, but just think about your area where you'd be riding your board, and then just keep that in mind when we talk about the different options that are out there.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I think when I first bought electric skateboards, there weren't as many options. I know Evolve, I think, was an option, so they did have the all-terrain boards, but and I think this topic is very much related to like all-terrain versus like street versus types of wheels or type of terrain you're riding in, and like for cities and like if you know your area and there's a lot of like really well paved roads and like normal urethane wheels are fine, I think. But
Hmm.
if it's very gravelly, then that's something you want to consider, like maybe getting all terrain, or even like if your area is hilly, right? Like some boards are more powerful than others in terms of like their wattage. So you might want to look into how how big of a hill they can climb.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't even think about that because I live on the coastal plain
yeah,
of Virginia. It's pretty much flat. I don't ever have to think about needing that much torque or power to climb up hills. So
yeah,
yeah, good
exactly.
point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I think that was definitely something I considered when I first bought my board, because I think I went to Rutgers, so there were like some hills, but honestly, like none of those hills, like my board like was able to take on all those hills like fine. But I don't know. I think you start losing some torque with like hub motor boards, so that is definitely something to keep in mind though if you have steeper hills in your area.
Right.
Yeah. In terms of like the legality, I would also definitely just like maybe reach out to like your local e-skate group or just ask around the subreddits or communities and see like how it is. Like a lot of places, they won't explicitly say, or like it won't be explicitly illegal, but it also won't be explicitly legal. So a lot of times like police won't enforce it, but you just have to be careful. You just know the laws in your area when you're deciding to buy a board.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, completely agree.
Yeah, because you
Yeah,
also
if
never know
there's
what'll happen in the future too. Like,
yeah, if there's people out there in your area already riding, ask them. Try and reach out to them on Instagram. There's lots of groups out there on Facebook, on Reddit. You can find one. Ask people, what the laws are and if they ever got in trouble with their board and riding around.
exactly. And chances are, like, if you post to like the electric skateboard subreddit, just like, hey, is anyone riding in this area? Someone will probably, reach out or like post like, hey, we have a group here. Or if not, you can start one. I started my own group at Rutgers. Now it's grown to like a much bigger thing.
Look at you, leader. I see you.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know about you, but when it comes to buying something, the first thing that I look at is the budget. Like, can I afford this? Because if I can't, I'm not even thinking about it. To me, I think budget is the first thing people think of when they buy their first board.
Right.
When they buy their first board. I think that the minimum for a brand new electric skateboard right now of decent quality is going to be around $500. That goes upwards up to $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. The more of a budget you have, the more options and features you'll be able to get with your first board. But for your very first one, like the bare bones minimum, it's a board. It has motors, it has a battery. It goes decently fast. It has decent range. It's going to be around $500, and chances are it's going to be an imported board from overseas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, 500 sounds like a good price range. I think you can even get like, I think some Meepos like go for 400, and like those are pretty decent. Like if you really need to, 400 is also like an okay range, but like you have to know that like at lower price ranges you trade off a lot more like for the price.
Yes, but yeah, around 400, 500 is like the very start of something that's decent. If you see anything lower than that, be a little skeptical. There's probably overstating its specs or something. Like usually you can't find something at like the $200, $300 range.
If you see
brand
something
new
that's like 200, 100, it's a scam. Like don't even go for it.
It's probably meant for kids. Like you find it at like Walmart or something.
Yeah. Unless it's like used. Even if it's used at that price range, it's probably like an older model too. Like at that price range, you may as well just spend an extra couple hundred, like $100, $200 to get like a better board.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Just save a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then you can get something decent.
Yeah. Or you can even go like, if you decide to even like spend more, like you kind of go like my route when I first bought electric skateboards is to just go for whatever is like the higher quality one, because then I can almost guarantee, not me, but like it's more guaranteed that it'll last longer than like a cheaper board. But then again, I think maybe in this market, I think a lot of boards now that are cheaper are getting a lot better. So that might happen less often than it used to. Like in 2017, when you're comparing a boosted versus a budget board, the budget boards would break down after like 3 months. So that was a no-brainer for me to like spend a bit more to like get the actual high quality boosted board. But I think now in like 2020, that's less so of a problem because you can spend 400, 500 and your board can run fine for a while because of the budget brands have gotten.
At this point, the big players in the market, the budget range, sort of know what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a couple of
years. Anecdotally, I've never had a board break down on me. Never.
Yeah,
I've tried out a bunch of different budget boards from overseas. Other boards, none of them have broken down on me. They're still kicking to this day, every single one of them, and they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
But like the more budget you have, the more options you have, and more what am I trying to say here? You can rest more assured with the more, you get what you pay for. There you
Yeah,
go.
you get what you pay.
You get what
And
you pay for.
yeah, exactly. One thing I did
But
want to
go ahead.
add on to that is like I know a lot of people. I think some people in the chat are saying, and I've had people telling me too. Like people always be like, "Oh, you can go DIY also," and that's also
Correct.
something to consider. And sometimes I tell people like DIY is an option. You can build much higher performing boards when you go DIY for your budget. Like for $500 or $700, you can build a board with the specs of $1,000 board or higher. The issue is like not everyone can DIY. If DIY is your thing, then totally go for it. You can build something great, but keep in mind that there are risks. Like if you go DIY, things can go wrong. You might have to buy more parts, and then it might end up being more expensive than if you were just to buy a production board. But that is an option, and I wanted to just shed some light on that because I know some people will suggest DIY over buying a production board, especially if
Of
they're looking for
course.
performance.
Definitely an option. If it was up to me, it wouldn't be my first choice for my first board because I'd probably screw something up. I'd probably want to get like a budget board, practice, like open it up, look at it, and just see what it looks like. That's personally what I would do if I was interested in DIY. I was kind of hesitant. I would just sort of educate myself with hands-on experience with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think it's worth mentioning though, because I know there are people people who have like a set budget, but they don't want to, lose the performance. So a lot of people end up just building their own with the budget that they have, and then they can, form their own board and their own performance.
The good point about doing that is you can make it exactly how you want to make it.
Exactly.
You can choose your deck, you can choose your wheels, you can choose the types of motors you have.
Yeah.
Which sort of brings me to the next point. How do you want the ride of this board to feel? There are different types of electric skateboards out there offering different ride types, from flexi decks, from different types of motors to street wheels, off-road wheels. There's whole different kinds of options out there to choose from. Why don't we start off with motor type? Sure. I would say the three big players out there are belt drive motors, hub motors, and then we have direct drive motors.
Yep.
Since you bought a boosted V2 as your very first board, that's a well-known belt drive board. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Maybe some pros, some cons?
Sure. For belt driven boards, it's well known that belt driven usually has like a lot more torque, and like you really feel the power like when you use the remote. Like the power is like instantaneous, and I think for me, I definitely do prefer belt driven boards, and I've tried like hub boards, but at the end of the day, like I go back to belt driven boards because I'm used to how that feels, and it's kind of hard to describe, but between the boards that I've tried, between like belt and hub, there is like a difference in terms of the ride feel, and I don't really know how to explain it. It's just like the belt driven boards tend to feel more like they do exactly kind of what you want it to. Where sometimes I've had issues with hubs, like not exactly, having like instantaneous acceleration or just like feeling kind of off in some way.
I think I know what it is. It's the sound. You like the whir.
I do.
It just makes you feel better about it.
Yeah, that is another thing. Like belt driven, you will hear the sound of the belts, and that's a given. And I do like that noise because I would rather my board be loud going like 22, 25 miles per hour than it not being loud, because Ronnie, you must know that like people, like pedestrians, love to just like cross in front of like the bike path.
Yeah.
So having that sound kind of alerts people around you that like, okay, this is a motorized vehicle, stay clear of me, like do not walk in front of me or else you will get hit from me to going 25 miles per hour. So I do like the sound for that reason, but if I want to go stealthy, then hubs are pretty good too. But you've tried a lot more hub boards. How about why don't you talk about some your experience with hubs?
So a lot of budget boards are generally going to be hub at around that lower price point that we talked about. The pros to hubs that I like are the fact that maintenance on them is very low. You don't have to change out belts. You don't really have to do anything. I mean, you can swap out the sleeves to new sleeves if it ever wears down, but honestly, I feel like that would take a long time for it to wear down.
Hmm.
The downside is that inside of the hubs is the motor. You don't have a full wheel.
Right.
It's basically a hollowed out wheel with a motor shoved inside of it. So you only have a few millimeters of urethane between you, the motors, and the road. So it's just the ride isn't as great. It's not bad. It's just that when you're on different like surfaces, bumps, cracks, you tend to feel it a bit more.
Yeah.
That's the trade-off there.
Yeah.
It's
That's like.
not terrible, but it's not as good as riding a real wheel.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like that's one thing. Like I have issues with riding hubs because like you really feel in your feet like that there's not enough urethane back there. Like the bumps are a lot bumpier versus like a full urethane wheel for a belt driven. So that's I think that's one of the things that contributes to the off feeling of hub boards for me.
I think on a flat surface, they're fine.
Oh yeah, for
Once
sure.
you
Like
go
completely
to
smooth.
something, yeah,
But as soon as you're like say my area, like I live by the water, so I tend to ride on like the boardwalk a lot, and there's like the tiled ground. Like when I ride on that, like it's like super bumpy. So
Oop. Yes,
yeah. But yeah, like sort of off of what you said too, the one of the cons for belts is that you do have maintenance, so like your belts will break every once in a while. For for a boosted, I think my experience like they'll break every 300 to 500 miles. So you can get a lot of riding out of them, and they're not that expensive. If you have a community near you, you can always do like a group buy for belts. So it ends up not being too expensive. Like for me, I think it ends up being like $6 or $7 per pair or per belt. I forgot which one it was, but they're not bad. But yeah, they do have more maintenance. But and then for hubs, I would say like one of the cons too is if your hubs for whatever reason do end up breaking, then you have to replace the entire like motor in your wheel. So, but like you said, like if there's probably a low chance of that happening, right? So
yeah. Chat saying that you can free roll with hubs.
that's
You
true.
can
Yeah,
free roll with you can free roll with belts too.
yeah, you can free roll with belts. It's just there's a lot more resistance, so don't expect to be going too fast on a like
I
pushing with the belt.
I think it's only a little bit of honestly. I've pushed on a belt driven board
Yeah,
and it was fine.
yeah, I've done it
Very
before.
minimal
Like
slowdown,
it's possible. It's possible for sure.
but it is there.
Yeah,
It is definitely present. The fact that you're not completely
yeah.
free rolling.
Yeah, I think I've had some friends who so they're into DIY. They've like created there's a certain like belt or certain type of belt driven system that you can make that actually has like really good free rolling. I don't know exactly like what that is, but it is possible to make belt driven boards more free rolling, I think.
And then up to the next type of motor is the direct drive. Do you have any experience with direct drive boards?
I've tried one once. I think it was like the Carvon Evo motor. Somebody made a DIY with them. I don't think Carvon exists anymore, as far as I know. They might have went out of business recently, from what I've been hearing. But direct drives feel nice. Like
It's kind of like the best of both
yeah,
worlds in
they
a way.
really feel like the in between, right? Because you have the full urethane wheels, but it's
Right.
also not a belt driven like whir sound. Like you don't feel the belt driven type of feel, I guess, to the direct drives. So they like felt good. They're like super quiet and they had enough torque to them. So it is like sort of the best of both worlds, kind of the in between.
Yes, and there's also very little maintenance there, no
Yeah.
belts to break on there, and it you can use a full wheel. It really is like the best of
Hmm.
both worlds. I don't know why not more people are making direct drive systems,
Hmm.
but I like them.
Yeah. I think the downside is a lot of times it has to make the truck like wider because it has to fit the motor in between like the truck and the
Yes,
wheels. So your trucks end
because
up being wider.
yeah, instead of the motor being inside of the wheel, it's right next to the wheel, so
Yeah.
it does seem just a little bit wider, but
Hmm.
there's a lot more pros than that one con. I think having a wider truck would just make you a little more stable.
Hmm. And I think a lot of companies aren't really doing direct drives because it's expensive for not that much of a like
Difference.
difference. Yeah,
Difference.
like for it's really expensive and hard to like develop and I think make for companies. So at that point, I think it's more economical to just either go like either way, like either hub or belt. So that's what I've been hearing online. That's why like a lot of like companies aren't really doing direct drives, but they exist. I think like Torque Boards has them, but that's more of a DIY
Yes.
brand. Um, I don't know. Are there any companies like production companies that are selling direct drive boards right now?
Revel.
Revel, yeah, I see that in chat.
Revel, the bolt-on drive system. I
Yeah.
personally am a big fan of it. I like it. I like the it just feels good. I've
Mm-hmm.
put Slick Revolution foamies on there,
Mm-hmm. Yes, I
and
see.
that was fun. It was really easy to do. I just literally swapped the wheels out like any other regular skateboard,
Right.
and it gives you the freedom to put a bunch of different wheels on there as long as it fits one of their pulleys. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another pro for direct drive. But yeah, the freedom to choose any deck is an awesome segue
Mm.
into the next option for how you want your board to feel is the deck shapes. So there's tons of, well, actually, there's not that many deck shapes out there. Let's be real. People are only
Yeah.
making a few different shapes. We have the mini slash cruiser shape. We have the longboard shape, which a lot of people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
They look just like the loaded Vanguard or a couple of other longboards, but there's that longboard shape. And then there's, I don't know, weird off-road decks that look like tanks and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
The off.
But for the most part, you're gonna find like mini cruiser boards and then longboards.
Yeah. And I think
And
this is a. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead,
Oh,
I'll let you take charge.
okay. I think this is a really good topic for like for choosing your first board and like beginners, because like I've had people come up to me like they wanted like a short board at first, right? Like, and it seems like a nice option, right? Like, let's say using the boosted mini as an example, it's a cheaper version of electric skateboard. They tend to be cheaper and they tend to be more smaller and portable, and they're more welcoming for beginners. They look more welcoming. The thing that I think a lot of people like don't realize is that they're also harder to ride. When you're riding a short board, you kind of also need more skateboard experience, like knowing how to use a kicktail, like tic tacking and everything.
Hmm.
Whereas with the longboard, it's much longer, and depending on what you're using your electric skateboard for, whether that's either tricks or just getting from point A to B, longboards are much better suited for that because they're more stable, especially if you're a beginner. You want that space to use, and then I was gonna say like they might carve better, but I think that's kind of depending on how you set your trucks and your bushings.
Right.
Yeah, but the stability is definitely better on a longboard versus like a shorter skateboard that might have a kicktail, because then that's the added knowledge of also learning how to use that kicktail properly, which like I think for beginners is like a bit more scarier to work with a kicktail rather than just standing on a wooden piece of, I guess, a wooden skateboard, a piece of wood.
Yeah, a wooden piece of wood.
Wooden piece of wood, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the minis are the cruiser board shapes. They're going to be a bit more maneuverable in the cities. They have a kicktail, so you can drop down different curbs. Whatever drops you have, you can lift your wheels up to
Mm-hmm.
make a sharp turn. And the biggest thing is that it's probably going to be a bit more portable. If you have to go in and out of lots of different stores, buildings, going into work, taking it into the train, it might be easier to do that with something around like 32 inches
Mm-hmm.
rather than a big full longboard around 30, 40 inches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
definitely.
with the portability, you do lose a bit of the stability of a longboard because your wheelbase is going to be shorter. Your effective foot like stance area where you can place your feet is going to
Mm-hmm.
be shorter, and that's where the longboard shape sort of takes the lead. I think what you should do, whatever route you're going to be using your first electric skateboard for, take either a cruiser board or a longboard. If let's say you're going to work, right? Ride a cruiser
Mm-hmm.
board to work. Ride that path, just push around it. And I'm talking about a non-electric one. And just see how that feels with that type of board. Do it with a cruiser board if you can. Do it with a longboard if you can. And if you like it, then that's probably the one that you should go with. I want to know where you personally stand. What do you like more? Like the minis or the longboards?
So for me, I'm like more of a speed demon, right? Like
Hmm.
my my way of skating is much more similar to how you would see like a downhill longboarder skate. So I'm definitely more of a longboard fan. Uh, but I do have shortboards. My second board actually that I've owned or electric skateboard was the Riptide. It was a shortboard with a kicktail. And my purpose of buying that board was so I could do tricks because there's a lot you can't do with a longboard. Like because there's like a lack of a kicktail, you can't do like sort of the jump off curves or onto curves tricks and just like anything you can do with a kicktail, right? And the portability, right? It's the longboard is a lot heavier, a lot longer to like bring it into class and stuff. Whereas
Oh yeah,
if
you
you're
have to
just
find a
doing
place to stuff that
yeah,
thing, like
or if you're
especially
going
if the
yeah,
college the lecture halls,
exactly.
those chairs are so tight together. You have to find somewhere to store that
Mhm.
big board.
Or if you're just like going down the street, right, like to do like some grocery shopping or something, I would
Hmm.
much rather just carry a much lighter shortboard for those kind of purposes. So that's why I bought the Riptide originally, like because I wanted to do a bit more tricks, have a bit more fun while riding, as well as the portability. And keep in mind, I before I bought electric skateboards, I also had both of these type of boards. I actually started learning how to skate on a penny board, which is not something I
Mm,
recommend, by the way. Like if you're if you're starting to learn
definitely
for a
do not.
skateboard for the first time, definitely either use a traditional longboard just to like learn the stances, or just like a normal skateboard. Penny board is so small, but from that I had the experience of riding a skateboard with a kicktail, and then after the penny board, I also bought like a traditional longboard. So I had knowledge for both those types of boards. So if you're a beginner, that's definitely something to keep in mind. Like, what shape do you want? Like, what do you value more? Do you value more stability or portability? Like you said, Ronnie.
Yes. Personally, I probably no surprise. I prefer the cruiser board shapes.
Mm-hmm.
I just think they're. I think you said that you wanted to get your Riptide for fun,
Yeah.
like a bit more fun. I think they have a tiny bit more of a fun factor to them, just because you can do a little bit more.
Yeah.
And going fast on it does feel a little stable, but that kind of just adds a little bit to the fun. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's too sketch for me. Like, I think for short boards, I wouldn't. I'd be afraid to go more than 24, 25 miles per hour.
Yeah, I've gone close to 30 on the
Yeah, the
Meepo
Meepo
Mini
Mini, right?
too, and
It's wild.
it was nuts.
I wouldn't want
It
to
was
do
nuts.
that. Yeah.
But yeah, the minis are fun. I take them off ramps and stuff like that, off
Hmm.
curbs. I've done like regular tricks on them, and they're
Yeah.
just, I like them because they just feel like a skateboard, and that's sort of where I started
Yeah. Yeah.
on a regular skateboard. So
Yeah.
that's why I like that.
Yeah. Your background is
But
more like traditional, like trick skating. So
yeah,
I can see
that's what's
that.
fun for me. So whatever is
Right.
more fun for you, whatever shape you think you're gonna have more fun with, is the one that you should go for.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
And the next option that you can put on your board is wheels, wheel type. Right now, it's basically street wheels, off road wheels, and then in between, we have sort of like 120 millimeter slick revolution foamies that kind of are a little bit of both.
Like the really big urethane, maybe like the
Yeah,
treaded. Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't say they're
In
off road,
between.
all terrain wheels, but you can do a little bit of that,
Mm.
you know? Like, I went to a huge trail either last week or the week before with lots of big roots.
Hmm.
I was barely hanging in there with these like 7-inch tires. I don't think the slick revs could have done that. But going over grass, gravel,
Yeah.
perfectly fine. Street, of course.
Yeah. With the slick revs, I've gone over grass like no problem at my local park.
Hmm.
So like the slick revs or like the foamies, and I think some people like call them the cloud wheels, or like there's another brand called the cloud wheels. They're really interesting because they're like a kind of good in between. Like they're really big wheels, but at the same time they're still urethane, but they're also big enough, and they have the treaded pattern that allow you to go over like gravel, dirt, grass. So it's really interesting to be able to do that. Like I
Yes.
put them on my boosted board, and it was just wild to be able to go through like an off road trail on my boosted board. So it's a really interesting experience.
Yeah, so for wheels, I think for those of you trying to buy your first board, I think you kind of know, if you know where you're going to ride, you kind of know what kind of wheels you're going to need. There are street wheels. There are the cloud wheels, the slick rev foamies. There are off-road wheels. There are some airless off-road wheels, and there are um, some wheels out there with an inner tube. I
Yeah.
don't have experience with the inner tubed wheels,
Yeah, I
but
don't either.
I think that the type of wheel that you're looking for is sort of a given. Like I think if you know where you're gonna ride,
Hmm.
you know that a street wheel would not do well on off-road trails.
Yeah.
But the trade-off for having off-road is that it's gonna be bigger, bulkier, heavier,
Yeah, I
and
think you lose a lot of range and speed when you go off-road compared to
yeah,
like
yeah. So
yeah.
one fun fact is the bigger your wheel, the higher your top speed, but the slower your acceleration and the less
Hmm.
range you get.
Yeah, yeah.
So pros and cons to all of them. They're all awesome. Just pick
Yeah,
whichever
it
one's gonna work
depends.
for wherever you're gonna ride.
Yeah, and if you don't know where you're riding, like I'm assuming you'd be riding on your streets or sidewalks, so definitely like you want to like look at those like
Yeah,
sidewalks.
go inspect them.
Yeah,
Find out if
you
they're
definitely
like
want to inspect.
huge cracks. Like you never know. You can look at a road from a car and it looks fine, but when you go up close to it, you notice like
Yeah,
just how crappy and beaten the road is. There's like rocks everywhere.
yeah.
Just yeah, go take a look at your area of where you're gonna be riding most frequently and just see what kind of wheels you would need to ride over that.
Hmm. Yeah, before I skated, I would never look at the street and be like, "Oh wow, look how steep this hill is, or look how shitty this road is."
Yeah, yeah.
Before I
Now I'm
skated, it
looking
was middle
at
road, you know. But
yeah,
but when you learn to skate, you start to realize like, oh wow, these like these little things about the roads that are important for when you skate.
exactly.
Yeah. One thing about the urethane wheels is they're like really smooth, right? So like if it's wet and rainy, like they'll like slip. So weather might be a factor in your area. If you're buying a weatherproof board that has urethane wheels, I wouldn't recommend riding them in rain either, just because like urethane wheels tend to slip like really, really majorly like
Yes,
in water.
yes. Wet roads plus wheels
Yeah,
equals slip.
yeah. You might have a
Who
better
would have thought?
yeah, exactly. You might have a better chance with riding a wet road with like off-road wheels, or even I haven't like tested this myself, but maybe like the foamies, since they're like threaded or treaded. But urethane wheels are a no-go when the roads are wet, because if you do a little bit of carving or you go too tight of a turn, then your board will go sideways and you're also going sideways. So
Yeah, I recommend not riding in the rain, but if you do, just be a bit more cautious.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So on to one of the last topics is what type of performance are you looking for out of your board? How fast are you going to want to go? What kind of range do you need? Let's say your daily commute is going to be 10 miles to one side of the city, 10 miles back. You'd have to take that into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to want to travel with this board? Do you want some extra features? Some boards have apps, companion apps that allow customization. Some boards have fast chargers that you can buy that charges it up to 100% in like 30 minutes or an hour. It just cuts the charging time in half. Or maybe customizability. You want to get a board that doesn't look like anyone else's board out there. There's a lot of different things when it comes to performance in this type of board. When you bought your boosted board for the first time, did you consider this like the speed and the range?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. When During the boosted V2 era, there was the boosted dual versus the boosted dual plus, and that was like a decision I had to make for myself, because so the boosted dual max speed was 20 miles per hour, and boosted dual plus was $200 more, I think, for 22 miles per hour. So so basically, the question for me was, do I want to spend $200 more for 2 miles per hour extra speed? And then,
And then
so
you did.
I did, right. So the justification is like, a lot of people are saying online, like, when you go for the slower board, after like a while of riding, you're gonna want to go faster, right? So if you're
Right.
somebody who likes to go fast, like if you longboarded previously and you like going fast, or you just know that you'll probably be a speed demon, then I would go for like the higher speed models if you have like a choice, like if you had the boosted dual versus boosted dual plus. But I'm not sure if that's. I mean, boosted's no longer, but that's something to consider. You know,
Right.
um, for range, I think at the time, yeah, boosted V2 I pre-ordered with the extended range model. So being on a college campus, like it is a big college campus, but it was definitely doable within the 14 miles I think advertised range, which I think ended up being like 10 to 12. But even then, it was like more than enough for me to get around. And also like depending on like how your commute is, can you charge at your like destination, right? If you have to go
Right.
back, you want to keep that in mind. Like you could go for the lower range model if it's cheaper, if it fits your budget more. But you, as long as like you can charge at your destination and it can charge full, and then you can go back. So it really depends on like your needs. Like this topic that we're talking about is definitely like a lot of research on your part. Like you definitely need to know like what your boundaries are for these different things.
Definitely, definitely. I agree with you. If you can afford to get the next tier up that offers a bit more, go
Mm,
for it because you're probably gonna want a few miles
yeah,
more uh, range, a few miles faster.
exactly. Dude, and even then, right? I actually made my boosted board go even faster. I wasn't satisfied with the 22, so
Maybe
uh,
you shouldn't have gone with a booster board.
yeah. I mean, it was the only option back then, unless I
That's
want to spend
true.
like $1,800 for an evolve.
That's true. And
Yeah.
speaking of options, like nowadays, the options there's so many out there, and generally most of
Yeah.
them, if they've made it to market and they've been here for a couple years, they're pretty good.
Yeah. If
They've
you.
got like I would say the average performance right now is something that goes 25 miles per hour
Mhm.
for 10 to 15 miles,
Yeah.
and that's at like the lower end
Yeah.
of the spectrum.
Yeah. It's definitely the new standard now. Can't believe like
Yeah,
a couple years ago, standard range used to be like 6 to 7 miles, and now extended range is like 20 miles, whereas
yeah.
standard is more like, boosted extended range, which is like 14, 10 to 14. That's the
Have you
difference.
ridden 20 miles straight before?
I have, yes. I rode with the Lacan. The Lacan board has really good range for the budget, I think. It's really cheap, but it had like 20 plus miles of range. Like,
I remember that board. I did not get 20. I got somewhere in the high teens though.
yeah. I think
Yeah, and
I
that was
wasn't going like I don't think I was going full speed the whole time. I think it was
mhm.
more of a chill ride because I was riding along the water here in Jersey, so it was more chill. But it was cool the fact that I was able to get 20 miles out of a budget longboard. That was pretty.
Yes, and
Yeah,
at 20 the top speed on that, I think I got like 25, 24 miles per hour or
I think I got
something.
25, 26.
And I don't remember where it's at now, but it was priced at like 500
Yeah,
back then. I don't know if it's still priced at that, but it was like 549
I think they
for
might be cheaper now. I think around
yeah,
400 bucks.
exactly for those specs.
Yeah, pretty good.
And since we're talking about budget, the more budget you have, the bigger your budget, you can get extra features.
Mm-hmm.
I really like it's it's quite pricey, but I really like the Mellow, mainly because when I was traveling a lot, not anymore,
Mm-hmm.
sad to say,
Yeah,
I would bring my board with me because it was so easy to do it with the Mellow board. The battery just pops right out. It's under 99 watt hours. I put it in my carry-on bag. I take it with me in the plane. I stuff like a penny board or a foldable longboard in one of my bags, and it's just the easiest thing to do.
you're right.
Have you ever traveled with your boosted board or any electric skateboard via airplane?
No, not airplane. I've done it like on a bus or train, I think, but not an
Uh
airplane.
huh. So like other people, you can take like your battery out. But have you seen what a battery looks like outside of its case? It's just like a block
Yeah,
wrapped in like plastic with wires sticking
yeah.
out of it.
It
Like
looks
trying to
really
take
sketchy, actually.
trying to take something like that through an airport is just a little
Yeah.
sketchy. So, I mean, that's something that you can get with the more that you're able to spend or invest into this. You can get something like that where for travel
Hmm.
or other things like apps. Does Boosted have an app?
Boosted doesn't have an app yet, or they do. but
Did.
they did.
Did? Do.
I guess
I
they
guess they
still
still do.
do. Yeah, that still works. Yeah,
Yes.
but probably
X-Way has an app.
X-Way's app's not.
Um,
Yeah.
Mello has an app. Uh, the Unlimited kit that I have on my loaded Icarus race kit, that has an app. And those things, all of those apps, they have customizability with how you ride. That's kind of a more of a premium feature, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And you can customize your torque or like your
Yeah.
acceleration, I should say.
Yeah. Some apps
And
definitely have less or more features than others.
right.
Yeah. Like using X-Way as example, like they allow you to change all those torque options, which is like
hmm
I don't know if are there any other boards that allow you to do that, like production boards? Did you
The
try?
Unlimited kit has that
Okay.
kind of. It has like ramping up acceleration, whether you want it to be hard or soft, and brakes too and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's on the higher end of things. On the lower end, some boards actually do have customizability within the remote. Actually, you can
Mm-hmm.
customize like brake level settings, or well, speed modes are given, but it's cool that some even budget boards have different
Yeah.
brake level adjustments because I don't think brakes should be a standard. Like some, I've definitely ridden boards where the brakes are just so weak, and I'm like, dude, how can we make these stronger? These are not strong enough.
Right.
I don't feel great about these brakes being this soft.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think like Can using it as an example, again, they have like you can set the different brake levels. Like some boards don't.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely coming up a bit more now,
Yeah.
though.
It's nice to have. And I do want to mention like even if like the budget boards don't have an app, I don't. It's really not that necessary.
Right, it's a
Even
little extra.
it is, yeah. Even though the higher end boards have apps, like you're not really gonna be using them that often. Like I don't think I've opened my boosted app in like months.
And
it,
just
it's
set it
it's
and forget it.
it's literally only to check like my the mileage, like my odometer. For the X-Way, since it has more features, I might edit some things more often. But once you have like your settings, like you're not gonna touch your settings really that often. So if your budget board is if you can find that correct like speed setting that you can totally do on your or your brake settings, then it's kind of not it's indifferent from like if your board had an app.
Right.
Yeah.
The last thing we got to talk about for your first board, when you're considering buying one, eventually it's probably going to break down. You're going to need some help with it. Um, you want to consider the warranty that the company offers. You want to consider what kind of customer support is available and if there are spare parts available if and when your board breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Nowadays, a lot of companies are putting a lot of focus in this department specifically. There aren't too many. Well, uh, since I've never had a board really break down on me, I've never had to take one in. Um, Boosted, they were in California. That's where
Really.
they repair boards. You could just send it over to them. That's really easy for us to do here in the U.S. I know that some of the boards that are coming out from China, they're building, distribution and repair centers here in the U.S. A lot of them have them here.
Mm-hmm.
I know Backfire has one in Richmond, Virginia. I know X-Way's like working on some.
Yeah.
I don't
I don't know
really know
exactly
about
what's going on with X-Way.
the other ones, but you definitely could if there's a company that interests you and they have a board, just email them and say, hey, if my board breaks down, tell me what I need to know to get it repaired. Where do I mail it to and how long would it take? That's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah. And there's
Yeah.
also like a situation where you have to look online too and see, what other people are saying about the customer support for these different companies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like that's a big thing that is something you want to research when you're looking for a first board.
Yes. I just want to say, kind of take those with a grain of salt too. You'll find horror stories about
Oh yeah,
every single company out
every
there.
single company. Yeah,
Every single one. You'll find praise stories and horror stories.
yeah,
It's just the thing is, when something's working good, you don't want to say anything. The second something breaks down, that's when you want to go ahead and type up a storm and get all angry.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah,
you can
but
have like so many praises, like praise for a certain customer service for a company, and then regardless, you'll have that one or two couple people that are like, oh, like something horrible happened to my board. I had like the worst customer service experience. Like it'll happen to every company for sure.
yes.
Yeah, and I think
All right.
I could talk about like my boosted experience too. When that was like a decision, I think when like the warranty stuff was a factor when I was buying the boosted board because back then again there weren't that many companies, so I wanted a board that had better customer service. And back then, Boosted did have customer service, regardless of what people were saying. The last couple months of Boosted's lifetime, the last couple months were not good for obvious reasons. But
Mhm.
back then, like there were stories of Boosted like fulfilling, sending free stuff even out of like warranty. So like that was like a really good thing to have, like when you're buying your first board. Like if I'm paying that much money, I better better get good treatment for my board if it breaks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So definitely look into the company's warranty policy.
Yeah.
Just straight up ask them. Send them an email and say, "Hey, if this breaks down, what do I do?" And if they don't respond, then that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a red flag right there. There's step number one. You probably avoided something, and it's probably
Yeah.
good that you avoided that. But yeah, just ask. It doesn't hurt
Hmm.
to ask, and it's free to ask.
Yeah, exactly.
So just ask. Yeah, it's definitely easier to ask than to try and send something to who knows where.
Hmm. And at the end of the day, like these are vehicles, these are hardware that we're riding at our feet. So like
Yeah,
there will be problems with them. So you wouldn't like drive a car without knowing that you can fix like an issue at some point, right?
yeah.
So
That's why they have these maintenance checks
yeah,
every what, like
exactly.
5,000 miles, 10,000
Yeah.
miles,
And that's something you should be
something.
doing for boards too, like maintenance checks.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely tune it up.
So like
Every so
make sure
often.
nothing's wrong, especially with like belt boards. I didn't mention this earlier, but like for belt driven boards, you have like higher risk of like maybe like pebbles getting in if you're like belt the correct like tightness.
Hmm.
So that's like something that I used to check. Albeit I don't really check that often anymore, but
Yeah.
uh, but it did used to happen. Like once in a while, I would see like a rock stuck under the belt. So like it's also on you to sort of maintain your board before like your board breaks and you have to send it to the company.
I've had rocks in my belts
Yeah,
before,
yeah, it happens.
and it happens. I was doing donuts in like
Mm.
gravel,
Oh yeah,
so I was kind of doing it on purpose, but
that's how you
it did
get
not
it.
sound good, and like I was kind of scared, but I got them out and everything was working.
Yeah.
Circling back to the board, we didn't talk about flex,
Oh
but this
yeah,
is really quick because it's really easy.
yeah,
Flexi boards, they're gonna be comfortable. They're gonna be made out of bamboo. They're gonna flex. It's in their
yeah.
name.
It's like a
They're
shock
gonna
absorber.
absorb shock.
Yeah.
It's gonna be kind of fun. I think like bouncing on flex, like a flexi deck's a little
Mm.
fun. And are there any other
Uh,
positives to it?
yeah. I mean, they if you have a bumpy road, then they're definitely like really good. I do prefer flexi decks more than stiff decks, just because I like that floaty feeling where when I carve, I
Yes.
kind of like sort of what is it? It's
I think it
a
kind of makes you
gradient there. Yeah.
feel a little like lighter on the board, and
Yeah. Yeah, that's something
or
I
like
do
like
like. Yeah, exactly.
like leaning into the ride, right? Like into the
Mhm.
carve, like with the
Yeah,
flex. I
leaning
know
the
exactly what you
carve,
mean.
like sort of when I go over like a big bump, like I will sort of lift the flex up, like lift my body weight a bit up, so my
Hmm.
board will have an easier time going over it. And that's something that's
Yes.
like engraved into like the way I ride boards. So when I ride a stiff board, like it's like much harder to like not harder, but like it's different. It doesn't feel the same. So I definitely prefer.
Right. On a stiffer board, you're gonna feel a bit more of your terrain. So
Yeah,
cracks, bumps, you're gonna feel it more. The trade-off is I feel more comfortable going fast on
on a
on a
stiff
stiff
deck.
board.
Yeah,
It does
definitely.
there's no flex to it, so there's less chance of me like getting a weird little wobble somewhere and that wobble like just
Yeah,
not going away.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, one thing I'll say though is I've had complete beginners like try a flexi and like be terrified because they're not used to like the flexiness and how it bounces. Like some beginners would much rather prefer like a stiff deck where like they might feel more stable. So that's something to keep in mind.
Mm,
Like if you have the chance to try a flexi versus a stiff deck, I would recommend it
yeah.
just so you know like what you prefer. But at the end of the day, if you ride either enough time, then you'll get used to it.
To me, I could take either or.
Yeah, same.
Like, if for some reason all the flexi boards in the world disappeared, fine,
Yeah.
it's whatever.
I mean,
if all
you
the
gotta ride,
if all the yeah, if all the stiff boards disappeared,
Yeah.
that's cool. I don't care. It's fine. I'll figure something out.
Yeah.
All right. To summarize the points we talked about, it's been about a little over an hour now.
Oh
Jeez.
wow. Cute.
Um, questions that you want to ask yourself before picking up your first board. Why are you getting one? No wrong answer to this. It's your choice. You're the one buying the board, not me. Where are you riding? Think about your terrain. Think about the legality in your area. Think about your budget. How much are you gonna be able to invest into this thing? Um, the you get what you pay for. Starting around $500 is where you'd want to start, 400 or 500, and it can go upwards to wherever. I have no experience with boards that are like $3,000, but they exist. They're out there, and if that's something that you're into, it's something you're into. No judgment here. You're going to want to think about how you want your ride to feel with the types of motors, the shapes of your decks, what your deck is made out of, whether it be flexi, whether it be stiff, and what kind of wheels you're going to need to ride in your area. And then you'd also want to consider speed, range, and other features that come with your board, whether it's an app, charge times, customizability, the ability to travel with it. And then last but not least, customer support, customer warranty, and if you're able to get spare parts for it, it's really easy to just ask the company what they do in that situation. Just send them an email, say, hey, what do I do if my board breaks down? And if they respond, then that's probably a really good sign.
Yeah.
All right. That wraps it up. Do you want to take like just a few minutes to go to answer some comments here in chat?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Let's do it.
There was All right, we got Jake MCM spamming. Where you get those major arc longboard trucks? The major arc longboard trucks were from Major Arc Longboards. They are not in production yet. I know they're awesome trucks, but they're not out yet. And what is the best electric skateboard? I'm glad that this question came up first because it's a very subjective question. You have to find out what's best for you. Think about the questions that we just listed here that you need to ask yourself, because what's best for me is not necessarily what's best for you in your scenario.
Yeah. And to go off of that, if you're doing research about like the different types of boards, make sure that people are talking about the board. It'd be more sus to like buy a board that there's not a lot of reviews or a lot of people posting about. Like for the boards that are out there that a lot of people have already tried, then like you'll know. Like you do a couple of searches and you'll know that there's a ton of reviews or a bunch of people on like a subreddit or community talking about it. So
Hey, Brandon.
yeah, what's up?
Michael Dooley says, make sure it's not a one wheel.
Hey man,
As a one wheel owner, how do you feel about that?
one wheel is it's a way different ride. If you're traditionally a skateboarder, actually no, you would have fun with the one wheel too. Like, man, this could be a whole nother video, but
Maybe we should do another one of these.
we could. I would say
We could.
don't knock it till you try it, because the appeal for the one wheel for me was like you could do tricks with it and how like floaty it looked. It looked super fun to ride. So when I finally learned a one wheel, like I rode that thing for like a straight month or two. Like that was the only thing I rode because of how
Personally,
how
I
fun
want
it
one.
felt. Yeah,
I'm kind of in the market for one.
they're super
Like,
fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal yours.
we could totally do another video about like one wheels in the future. Like I could go on about the differences between them. Like they're very different. They share a lot of similarities, but like they're super fun. I don't know. There's a lot more, but I'm not gonna go too into it right now.
All right, we got my buddy Bruce from That's the Angle. Thoughts on boosted boards shutting down? It's very sad.
It is, yeah.
It's they've definitely sort of paved the way in this industry, and I'm thankful for what they've done. It's just sad to hear, but I don't know if you heard this. I saw it somewhere. There were rumors. Maybe it's not even a rumor. It could be true of Lime
Yeah,
buying boosted boards. Did
heard
you see
about
that?
I heard about that, but I'm like,
What's
they're
Lime gonna do?
Lime is gonna use the scooter technology. They're gonna
Oh yeah,
they're
that's
gonna
true.
kill the boosted board section. They're gonna use all the technology of the boosted rev and use it to their, whatever their own liking. That's what's gonna happen with Lime.
What if next year we see rentable share skateboards?
That's
They're gonna be
honestly,
Limes. They're gonna be the boosted board
oh,
stealth with but green, and you can rent them for $1 a minute.
horrible idea.
I,
Horrible idea.
I sense a ton of potential lawsuits from because people
Yeah,
are already not riding those scooters
yeah,
correctly. They're not helmeting it up. They're crashing, hitting pedestrians. If they just put people on a skateboard instead, that's just gonna make things even worse.
yeah. People are already being reckless with electric scooters. How can you expect general populace to ride an electric skateboard where most people don't know how to ride an electric skateboard, use a rentable
Correct.
scooter or like a skateboard? It's too dangerous. So I would hope that the idea of rentable electric skateboards will not take off the way that electric scooters have. Electric scooters makes more sense just because more people can ride them. They have handles and everything. But
I want to see someone do it just so I can rent one and make a video, but I don't think it's a good idea.
yeah,
I saw a question about the summer board or the what was it called before? I have
the
one too.
leaf board,
The Leaf Tech
leaf tech
board. Yeah,
board. It's
Leaf
fun.
Tech summer board. It's fun. It's really
Yeah.
hard to use, but it's fun. Have you ridden one?
Fun fact, the first electric skateboard I've ever tried was some guy in Washington Square Park riding around with the leaf board. I think he was one of the ambassadors. And
Uh huh.
then I tried to ride it. I don't know how to snowboard. I don't know how to like use that, so
Was it
it didn't
hard?
go too well. I
Hmm.
got under for like a second. I'm like, okay, I can't do this.
It's tough.
Yeah,
It's tough. It's fun if you can do it, but you have
yeah,
to be a pretty seasoned like snowboarder because
yeah,
it's not easy.
yeah. I think if you're like a primarily snowboarder, then the summer board would be really fun for sure. You definitely want to wear like safety gear though. Like
Yes.
it's not the exact same as snowboarding from what I've heard. So like you're gonna end up falling. So you're gonna have to wear as much protective gear as you want without injuring yourself. At least when you first learn to ride it.
All right. Do you want to end this with recommendations of boards? Because people are asking just a
Yeah.
bunch of like
Yeah, may as well.
just a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
And spamming the chat is not the best way to get our attention. Please refrain. But recommendations. I can't I can't do brand or board specific models, but brands that I can easily recommend are X-Way. Backfire makes good stuff. So when I say this, I mean like pretty much all their boards. Okay, X-Way,
Mm-hmm.
Backfire, Meepo, Own Board, Wowgo. I like the Ride Unlimited kit quite a bit. So Ride Unlimited loaded.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Mellow specifically for travel. If you're a travel bug, like yeah, Mellow. A was it A
AE board.
E board? See, some of these companies, their names are weird.
Yeah.
The Blackhawk, the Nighthawk, Blackhawk. AE board? Who made that one? um, yeah, that board's really good. Um, generally, if it's a company that's been out for a couple years, probably really good.
Yeah. I'm not
Um,
gonna disagree with anything on that list. Most of those are pretty well known companies.
anything that you can add?
I think one thing I would say, I don't know if a lot of people are recommending this, but I think since Boosted is kind of going under, a lot of people are selling their boards. But from someone who's owned the Boosted V2 for 3 years, it's not necessarily a bad idea to pick up a used board now because like it would likely last you a while. Try to get it cheap, obviously. Like if it ends up breaking, you don't want to like spend too much money and have a dead board. But I've been hearing talks in the community that people are like trying to figure out how to source the different parts for like repairs, like outside of like Boosted, not through Boosted, but like from third party. So there might be, Boosted might still have a chance to live even though the company is going. So that might be an option. Like a lot of people are probably selling their Boosteds cheap. In terms of brands, I don't know. I think you hit most of them.
Okay, I just want to add one more because
Yeah, go ahead.
chat reminded me. It's Vester V-Star Blackhawk. Thank you,
Yeah.
chat. I am sorry, I forgot the name. But when you deal with a bunch of different things, you just forget sometimes. But John, thoughts on electric mountain boards? They're pretty awesome if you're riding down a mountain. If you're going to the grocery store, they're kind of heavy.
Okay.
But there's a time and place for them, and in the right environment, I think they're great.
Yeah. If you have the budget for them, like depending on the mountain boards you're talking about, I think mountain boards is very like a broad
Yeah,
term.
I don't know if you're talking about mountain board or if you're talking about
Yeah.
all terrain, because there are mountain boards that are
Yeah.
electric that are.
Like the what's the
That's a different
what's the
beast.
$5,000 board? I forgot.
Baja.
Baja board. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Look, that's a tank. But if you're talking about like maybe more expensive, like all-terrain boards, like the Evolve or even like the Cali
Mm-hmm.
NYC or the Lacroix, like again, like time and play and budget, right? Those boards are a lot more expensive. You'll see a lot of people in various communities with those boards.
Yeah, that's an
But
enthusiast board
yeah,
for sure.
it's an enthusiast board. I wouldn't recommend it for your first electric skateboard because those are very powerful boards, and like you shouldn't trust yourself riding such a powerful
Right.
board as your
Yeah.
first board. Yeah,
Exactly.
most people who own those types of boards tend to have already had like 2 to 4 different electric skateboards before getting that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the saying? The same my first rodeo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Cali Lacroix are like the 5th rodeo.
Exactly. You have to be a seasoned
Exactly.
cowboy to get on one of those. All right. I think we're gonna go and end it here.
Yeah.
Thanks to everyone tuning in. Thanks for chatting it up in there. This has been quite a long discussion. I told Brandon it was gonna be like 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine.
And
It was fun.
I'm glad you had fun. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for joining me here on this stream.
Yeah, no problem.
This is our first time doing it. We literally got ready for it about 10 minutes before going live.
Yeah, literally.
We had no idea how this is going to work. I read some comments saying that my mic sucks. I'll work on that. I'm so sorry.
You gotta get a mic like this, dude. Like an actual studio mic.
All right, we'll work on it. We'll work on it. The reason why I'm wearing this one is for gaming, which we're going to do later because Brandon's got some Call of Duty April Fool's things to take care of. And I'm going to be streaming. I'm going to be streaming over on Twitch playing some Warzone. So if you guys want to watch that, it's twitch.tv/suprani. I'll be up there. You guys can hang out. We'll talk more. Oops, I just typed Twitch in the chat, and that probably doesn't make any sense. But if you could, hey, can someone link my Twitch in chat? That'd be awesome. I really appreciate you. But yeah, thanks, Brandon, for joining me. You provided a lot of good information.
Yeah, no problem.
His link is down in the description. Definitely go subscribe to him. You still putting out videos?
Yeah, I have a couple in mind, but I've just been like, with the quarantine and everything, haven't been
Cooped up
writing.
inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good decision.
Yeah. So I haven't been writing. I have some video ideas that I can make without having to go ride, but we'll see. I've just been spending a lot of time gaming, so.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Which is why you got to follow my Twitch, please.
Yeah, I have a Twitch too, but it's not really like. I'm trying to get people there, but that's another time.
I have an idea, a quarantine video idea. Let me know if it sounds stupid, right?
What's up?
I'm gonna make my own one wheel.
Oh God, good luck.
I don't know how it's gonna work out, but tune in, guys, because something's gonna happen.
Sounds interesting.
Anyways, guys, thanks so much. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thanks again, Brandon, for joining me. Yep. And if you guys like this, let me know in the comment section when this video goes live. Definitely help it out. Give it a thumbs up. Say, do another episode. Talk about this. Talk about that. And that shows that you guys want us to do this again. And we'd be more than happy to.
Yeah, I'm definitely down to keep doing these. It's fun. Nice sort of like podcast hours.
I know. I didn't expect for it to be like this, but I did have a lot of fun. So,
yeah,
thanks for joining me. And thanks for those of you tuning in. Till next time, stay stoked. We're out.